Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Coffee Trading Academy podcast. I'm here with my colleague Igor for episode 23. It's been a while since our last one. I think something like a little more than 6 months. Man, it's been a while, hey Igor?
Yeah, it's been a while, and since then, lots of things have happened, which we'll address here in this presentation.
Yeah, it is the first episode in 2026, so that's exciting. And as you kind of alluded to, a lot's been going on.
Yeah, so we had actually a bullish cycle over the last few years that started back in with the frost in Brazil in 2021, and now it seems like we're starting to see the early signs of a bearish cycle that's developing. Not only because prices have largely fallen off the highs of 400 cents, but
Hmm.
also because of the spread inversion, which has been huge most recently is now losing most of its intensity. So if before we had 18, 20 cents inversion in the front month, now that has largely reduced to only a few cents in the front months. So taken together, all of those things look like an inflection point here in the coffee market, which leads to our usual question here in this podcast, which is what the heck is going on in coffee, Ryan?
Yeah, that is an excellent question, Igor. And it's the question that we always love to ask here. Rising bull market is a bit of an understatement, right? We had $4 coffee. We had the highest prices in history, at least on paper. And now, after much anticipation, that seems to be diminishing. It seems like perhaps coffee is now moving in a bearish direction. Um, so what are the key factors? As always, it is our boy Brazil here. We are anticipating a very large Brazil crop. This is not only from our own estimate, but also the consensus in the market. And that large Brazil crop is driving a global surplus. So the fundamentals have gone from very tight to expected very loose. And this is widely understood by the market. We have seen selling fairly consistently, uh, not only from the trade, but also from the specs. And that has turned into technical signals of weakness and bearishness. Now, interestingly, we had been having weaker dollar, and that typically has a bullish effect on coffee. But the market's been largely ignoring that for the last several months, and that's changed recently, and we'll talk about that a little bit at the end. But of course, it always starts with Brazil.
Yeah, so I think it's safe to say at this point that there is a wild consensus towards what can be a record crop in Brazil.
Hmm.
And if we take an average of the public estimates out there, that would give us a crop in the magnitude of around 73 million bags. So to put things into perspective, if we compare this to the previous record crop in Brazil of around 70 million bags, then we're a few million bags above the previous record. Back in
Hmm.
July 25, we had a preliminary assessment when we ran our first farmer survey to access the size of this crop. And we knew back then that this crop would have huge potential. Although farmers became a little bit more pessimistic during the flowering,
Hmm.
after that, the rains have come. The off-season rains have not only been good in volumes, but they have been well distributed. I'm here in Brazil, and I can tell that this summer we saw rains as pretty much a regular on our routine. And so far, all things are shaping towards indeed a very large crop from Brazil.
Yeah, totally. And I think you're right to point out the 2020 crop as a benchmark. Uh, that had been, I think, 70 million bags is a fair consensus. Some people had more like 71, some people a little bit less for that 2020 crop. And that is the previous benchmark for a very large or the largest Brazil crop. And we are expected to overtake that this year. Now, our general framework for the market, we are fundamental analysts and fundamental traders, meaning we look at supply and demand. And the general dynamic that we see for the coffee market and most commodities is this fluctuation between oversupply and undersupply. And of course, when the market is oversupplied with coffee, we get low prices. And when the market is undersupplied with coffee, we get high prices. So these last several years, we've had an undersupply. We've had bad Brazil crops, low stocks. That has led to that record-breaking rally to $4. And then we now that high prices has done its job. It is incentivizing the global production and incentivizing supply. Now the market is anticipating that larger supply and is indeed selling off.
Yeah, and if we assume that a high crop, a large crop from Brazil is very high probability at this point of the off season that we're very close to the harvest now, then it stands to reason that we could finally see some larger replenishment of destination stocks, which have been very low historically over the last few years. So although those
Yeah.
stocks are low as of right now, there's some potential to rebuild this year.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, certified, all stocks have been low. We've had very low stocks in Brazil. We've had very low stocks in destination markets. And of course, the very visible certified inventory is also extremely low, lowest that they've been since the mid 90s, for sure. Now, one thing that's interesting that we can look at, to your point about replenishing those stock levels and those inventories, is that the previous 2020 Brazil crop that we discussed earlier, when we had that record Brazil crop of 70 million bags, we saw the certs increase from a little over a million bags up to nearly, well, to above 2 million bags. So while we don't know for sure exactly how much Brazilian coffee is going to be certified this year, I think that a million bag increase from Brazil is certainly plausible. It's not guaranteed by any stretch, but if we had it in the 2020 Brazil crop, I don't see why we couldn't have a similar situation this time. Now, we had done a study on certified inventory and the correlation with calendar spreads. We've done several of these studies, actually written some papers, given some talks on them. And we're actually going to be doing a webinar on this very topic in a couple of months with the NCA. We can see that 1 million bags seems to be that magic threshold. When we have a million bags of certified inventory, that tends to be enough to keep the market in contango. So what that means now is that with our low stock levels in certified inventory, if that large Brazil crop comes as expected, we could see stocks once again rise well above that million bag threshold, which could indeed break the inversion and bring us back into a carry market.
Yeah, and going back to currencies a bit, I know you talked a little bit about currencies at the start of our conversation here. It's very interesting, the relationship between the US dollar and the coffee prices. So for those of you who are seeing this video, you can see how both of them have been declining. And usually when the US dollar declines, that tends to have a bullish impact on coffee. But the fact that both have been declining can be taken as quite a sign of the coffee market bearishness.
Right.
But right now, looks like things are changing with some geopolitical risks arising with the conflict between the U.S. and Iran.
Right.
That
And
has
before we get
been,
to that, I just want to reiterate what you said, because I think that was an important point, which is that if you're looking at our chart now, the dollar has been weak since November. We've been in a bear market for the dollar since November. And typically that has an inverse effect on coffee market, right? It has a bullish effect on coffee. But we didn't see that. We saw both a weaker dollar and weaker coffee. which kind of reinforces the idea of bearishness. And now, to your point, we have the U.S.-Iran conflict, right?
Yeah, and the U.S.-Iran conflict has actually turned the tide in the U.S. dollar, which
Hmm.
is now rallying. It's not just any rally; it's a big rally. Most recently, but even though the U.S. dollar is rallying, the coffee market hasn't shown too much sensitivity to this rally. It hasn't fallen. It hasn't received much of that currency pressure.
Yeah.
Maybe because it has sold off quite heavily already, about 70 cents in just a few weeks. But at the end of the day, this conflict, if we're analyzing its second-tide effects into the coffee markets,
Mhm.
I would frame it as generally bearish for not only coffee but other commodities.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely the standard way of looking at it, and that's what the way we look at it usually, which is that strong dollar would have a bearish impact on coffee. It would have a bearish impact on commodities in general. And but on the other hand, uh, if we're seeing the dollar rally and not seeing coffee fall, which is the situation now, is coffee's holding despite this strong dollar, that could be seen as a short-term bullish signal that perhaps the coffee market has done enough falling for the moment and is ready for a retracement rally here. So that's kind of where we are right now, and what we think kind of the short-term possibilities are versus the long term. So there is some possibility for short-term bullish retracement, but it looks like as that Brazil crop becomes more mature and it becomes harvested and everyone becomes confident in the size of that crop, then it does seem like that bear market is going to continue along with the collapse of calendar spreads and a return to contango. Now, one final thing I did want to mention here, or two things for you guys. Thank you for sticking around. This is important. We wanted to give you guys two discount codes. One for our coffee traders course that is coming up in just a couple of weeks here, March 23rd through 27th. Still a few seats left. This is getting great reviews. People really like this. Um, this is largely become a standard in the industry of what a coffee trader needs to know and sort of key information and upping your game in the coffee market. So the discount code for that is HECK 2026. That's HECK 2026. So use that code when you register for the course. You can get a discount. Same with our premium research. We send out daily, weekly, and monthly reports based on all the fundamental data in the market, as well as providing technicals and weather information on coffee. So you can get a discount code to that as well using code HECK26, HECK 2026. All right, everybody, that's our podcast for the month here. So hope you enjoyed that. Hope you found it useful. And I'll be at the NCA as well convention next week. So feel free to look me up if you get there. Otherwise, look forward to seeing you all soon. Thanks for tuning in.